Now there's differences. Kyler Murray did not play a lot under center in Arizona. Kevin O'Connell likes doing that. A couple of schematic things. There's not a mismatch. There's a little bit of a mismatch. But the things they can do well, corner routes, throwing outside the numbers, throwing to guys who get separation, which happens in Minnesota. There's more of a scheme fit than people think between Kyler Murray and Kevin O'Connell. This receiving core, this skill group is going to accentuate everything Kyler Murray does, open up running lanes. Kevin O'Connell's never had a scrambler like this, ever. Sometimes there's scheme fits, sometimes there's scheme expansions. This is a scheme expansion with Kyler Murray in that Vikings offense.
Kyler Murray hitting free agency is the kind of move that immediately changes how the entire league feels. Not because quarterbacks become available often, but because players like this almost never do. Franchise quarterbacks are usually protected at all costs. Teams build around them, invest in them, and commit long-term, even through inconsistency or injury. So when a player like Kyler Murray suddenly becomes available, it signals something deeper. This wasn't supposed to happen. For years, he was seen as the future of the Arizona Cardinals, a #1 overall pick, a player with rare mobility and playmaking ability, someone capable of changing games in ways most quarterbacks simply cannot. The expectation wasn't uncertainty, it was continuity.
But Kyler Murray, I think, is one of those guys that, similar to Sam Darnold, was maybe not in the best situation in Phoenix.
Right.
He's little.
That's correct.
But he is like a video game. That dude is such an athlete that he makes up for his lack of size, and he's got a ton of abilities. #1 overall pick.
Which is why he's going to beat out my guy, J.J. McCarthy, for the starter's gig. Because, I believe in J.J. McCarthy. I'm patently disappointed that he's not going to get.
And yet, here we are. The moment news of his availability surfaced, the reaction across the league was immediate. Front offices took notice. Teams that weren't even actively searching for a quarterback suddenly had to reconsider their position. Because when a player with that kind of upside becomes available, ignoring it is no longer an option. That's how quickly things shift. But what makes this move even more significant is what it represents beyond one player. This isn't just about Kyler Murray finding a new team. It's about the instability it introduces into a system that usually values long-term commitment at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I still think this is Kyler Murray's job to lose. When you compare his play, both the film and the stats, to what we've seen from J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz last season, it's really not close. And I do think it bears repeating that with even average quarterback play, which I do think they can get from Murray, this is a playoff team. We talk a lot about the defense being a top 10 or even better unit, but something that I think bears also mentioning is that the run game was above average last year, despite the fact that they faced the 25th highest number of light boxes in football. No team with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison should be facing that low of a rate of light boxes on the ground.
It raises questions. What changed behind the scenes? What led to a situation where both sides reached a point where separation became possible? And more importantly, what does this mean for the teams now entering the conversation? Because once a quarterback like this enters free agency, everything else starts moving. Teams begin reassessing their current situations, trade discussions quietly start forming, draft strategies begin to shift, and suddenly a single decision becomes the starting point of a much larger chain reaction. This isn't just a move, it's the beginning of something that could reshape multiple teams across the league, all at once.
But it looks like if we're going to take Kyler Murray and throw him into a straight-up 100% may the best man win competition, a guy that's gotten almost 90 career starts and is a first overall pick who's coming on $1.3 million, you take a flyer on him for at least the first third of the season and see what happens.
Yeah.
Like I think that, and then I don't know how you turn back to McCarthy because
these careers can take any trajectory. You know? I mean, you look at Darnold, you look at Daniel Jones, there's so many examples of that. So McCarthy's not done by any means. I think he is a really talented kid.
Right.
Moves like this don't happen overnight. When a franchise quarterback becomes available, it's almost always the result of a buildup, a series of small issues that over time turn into something much bigger. And in Arizona, that buildup was hard to ignore. From the outside, the situation always looked slightly unstable. There were flashes of brilliance, moments where Kyler Murray looked like one of the most dynamic players in the league. His ability to extend plays, escape pressure, and create offense out of broken situations made him uniquely dangerous. But consistency never fully followed.
If it is, congratulations, I'm calling it on March 19th at 4:02 p.m. Kyler Murray has won the quarterback competition because he's a better fit.
Trying to build drama and suspense here in the offseason.
He's a better player. He wouldn't have gone, frankly. He should have had 31 offers because it's Kyler Murray who's played a lot of ball at a high level for $1.3 million because of the offsets in his contract. So he's got a lot of options. He's not going to go anywhere. He doesn't think he's going to play. So that's the first part of that that's just practical. But then you look at it, he comes into Minnesota with a much better skill set than Sam Darnold had when he came to Minnesota 2 years ago, resurrected his career and became a Super Bowl winner and made a whole boatload of money in the process because of it. You look at the things that overlap.
Part of that came down to injuries. Availability has always been a factor in how quarterbacks are evaluated, and when that becomes unpredictable, it creates complications for a team trying to build long-term stability. But injuries alone don't explain everything. There were deeper issues. The system around him often felt misaligned. Coaching changes, shifting offensive schemes, and a lack of clear direction made it difficult to establish continuity. When a quarterback is constantly adjusting to new structures, development becomes uneven, progress stalls, resets, and never fully stabilizes. That creates friction. Over time, questions began to surface, not just about performance, but about leadership, communication, and overall fit within the organization. These are the kinds of factors that rarely make headlines directly, but they influence decisions behind the scenes.
Which is why they're not going to do that again this year. And if Murray, it costs them $1.3 million.
Yeah.
That's all it costs them.
It's a free.
Right, it's a free roll.
And again, he's one of those quarterbacks that has been in a situation that probably didn't bring out his best play.
You're assuming.
So we'll see if KOC can pull that out of him. I'm excited to see what happens.
I think you're
there.
going to. As what I'm saying, it's just if it's a straight up competition, as much as I love McCarthy and believe in him and trust in him, just the chance of him.
And once those doubts begin to build, they're difficult to reverse. From the team's perspective, there comes a point where continuing the same path feels riskier than making a change. From the player's perspective, there comes a point where a fresh start becomes more appealing than trying to fix a situation that no longer feels aligned. That's where things shift from tension to separation. This wasn't a sudden decision. It was the result of a gradual breakdown in alignment between player, system, and long-term vision. And once that alignment is gone, even the most talented players can find themselves looking for a new direction. Quarterback movement in the NFL is always significant, but not all quarterbacks carry the same weight when they become available. Kyler Murray falls into a category that forces teams to think differently, because players like him don't usually hit the market. There's a scarcity at the position that shapes how decisions are made. Teams without a clear quarterback solution often spend years searching through drafts, trades, and short-term signings trying to find stability. So when a player with proven ability and high upside becomes available, the value immediately increases, not just in terms of contracts, but in terms of opportunity. Kyler Murray represents a rare combination of traits: mobility, playmaking, and the ability to extend plays beyond structure. These are qualities that can elevate an offense quickly, even if everything else isn't fully in place. For teams looking to accelerate their timeline, that kind of impact is difficult to ignore. But there's also risk. His style of play comes with questions about durability and long-term consistency. Teams have to weigh potential versus reliability. They have to decide whether they're investing in what he has already shown or what he could still become in the right system. That calculation is where the market shifts, because once team decides he's worth the risk, others are forced to respond. Interest increases, negotiations become more aggressive, and suddenly the value of not just Kyler Murray, but other quarterbacks around the league begins to change. That's the domino effect.
So we've got Kyler Murray, J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz, and Max Brosmer. They're not going to have four guys on the roster. And I think enough people around the league think enough of Brosmer, if we ignore the game against the Seahawks last year. If he would get cut, he'd get claimed on waivers. Maybe he slips through waivers and he's the practice squad guy. I just look at those numbers, and I wonder if they have one too many, and it makes me wonder who's going to be gone by the time week 1 rolls around. And if it's not Brosmer, who's it going to be?
Teams that were comfortable with their current situation start exploring alternatives. Others feel pressure to act before options disappear, and even teams outside the immediate conversation are impacted because the quarterback landscape becomes less stable. This is why moves like this matter. It's not just about where Kyler Murray ends up, it's about how his availability reshapes decisions across the league, how it forces teams to reassess timelines, priorities, and long-term plans. And once that process begins, it rarely stays contained to one player. It spreads. Once a quarterback like Kyler Murray becomes available, the conversation quickly shifts from why did this happen to who's making the move. But not every team is realistically in position to land him. There's a difference between interest and fit. Some teams are desperate. They lack a clear answer at quarterback and are stuck in cycles of short-term fixes. For them, Kyler represents a chance to reset quickly, to skip years of uncertainty and immediately add a player with proven upside. But desperation often leads to riskier decisions, and not every roster is built to support a player like him. Then there are teams that are close. These are the most dangerous ones in this situation. Teams with strong rosters, solid coaching structures, and just one missing piece at quarterback. For them, Kyler isn't a gamble, he's an upgrade. His mobility and playmaking can unlock an offense that's already functional, turning it into something far more dynamic. That's where the competition intensifies. Fit becomes everything. Offensive schemes that allow flexibility, coaches willing to adapt, and supporting casts that can complement his strengths. These factors will likely determine where he lands, because at this stage, it's not just about signing a quarterback, it's about maximizing him. And then there are the wildcard teams, organizations that may not seem obvious at first, but have the cap space, the draft capital, or the ambition to make a move that shifts their trajectory entirely. These are the teams that often emerge late in the process, changing the direction of negotiations unexpectedly. What makes this situation even more complex is timing.
We're not going to be like this again. This is not going to happen. So I think they're just stockpiling. And they'll figure out who's the odd man out later, but getting Kyler Murray made a lot of sense for them financially, and I think Murray's a fan of the Vikings and vice versa. You still have McCarthy on that rookie contract, and you know that if nothing else, Carson Wentz is tough enough to play the position. I mean, he really displayed some toughness last year when he probably shouldn't have been out there. So I feel like
teams must decide quickly. Waiting too long could mean missing out entirely. Acting too soon could mean committing without fully evaluating the risk. And that tension creates pressure. Because in a league where quarterback decisions define success or failure, getting this one right or wrong can shape a franchise for years. The moment Kyler Murray entered free agency, it stopped being just about him. Because quarterback movement doesn't happen in isolation. Once one major piece becomes available, it forces reactions across the league. Teams that were previously stable begin reassessing their situations. Front offices start asking different questions. Is our current quarterback enough? Should we explore alternatives? Are we falling behind? That's how the ripple effect begins. If Kyler signs with one team, it immediately removes an option for others. Those teams then shift their focus. Trade discussions accelerate, backup plans become primary plans, and suddenly multiple moves begin to unfold almost simultaneously. That's where things escalate. Other quarterbacks become involved. Veterans who were considered secure may find themselves in uncertain positions. Younger quarterbacks might face competition. Teams could pivot towards the draft, altering how early picks are used and which players become targets. The entire market starts to move. And it doesn't just impact teams actively looking for a quarterback. Even organizations that feel confident in their current setup are affected indirectly. Because once other teams improve, the competitive balance shifts. One upgrade forces another. This is how a single move can reshape an entire conference.
if they keep Darnold or Jones or they bring in Aaron Rodgers, JJ's not going to be happy, and JJ may want to continue his career elsewhere. And I say that now because even though he has less standing after his performances in 2025 to make a power play, we don't know how he feels about Kyler Murray showing up. We don't know how he feels about this loose sense that it's Murray's job to lose. All we know is that Kevin O'Connell said last week,
The most interesting part is how unpredictable this process becomes. A decision made by one team can trigger reactions that no one initially anticipated. A trade here, a signing there, and within days the landscape looks completely different. That's the nature of the NFL at this level. Everything is connected. And when a player like Kyler Murray becomes the starting point, the chain reaction doesn't just affect a few teams, it spreads across the league, influencing decisions, strategies, and outcomes in ways that extend far beyond one transaction. Amid all the movement and speculation, one question matters more than anything else. What is Kyler Murray right now? Not the version we saw flashes of early in his career, and not just the idea of what he could be, but the player he actually is today, because that's what teams are really betting on.
He's shown he can take over games. His mobility, creativity, and ability to extend plays make him one of the most unique quarterbacks in the league. But that hasn't always translated into consistent success over a full season, and that's where the uncertainty comes in. For any team considering him, this isn't just about talent, it's about projection. Are they getting a quarterback who can stabilize an offense and lead it long term, or a player who still needs the right system to unlock his best version? A new team gives him a reset, new structure, new coaching, new expectations, but it also removes the margin for excuses. Because once that reset happens, the evaluation becomes clear. This next move won't just define where he plays, it will define how the league sees him going forward.